This is the pastors' round table. I have a burden for pastors, and I don't want to deny that, particularly in these climes. I mean, take out the 1% of pastors, who are doing extremely well, the big cars, then et cetera, et cetera. The remainder of the other 99%, the pastoral office is pretty challenging, all right? Now, everyone kind of expects almost the, picture perfect. Everybody expects that, everything will be going on well, everything. Yeah. Okay, here I am. Okay, here I am. Everything will be fine, everything will be going on well, but in reality, that is not what happens, okay? It's pretty challenging for the pastor. And so the pastor's round table, I call it a place of refuge, all right? A place of refuge is, like a hiding place. A friend of mine was talking to me today, and he said to me that he had gone through quite a bit. And he said that, he had gone into his cave of Adullam. If you remember the story in the Bible, all right? So it provides safety, protection, comfort. And really, what I'd like us to do here is to be as open as we can be as we discuss, those issues that really, really matter to us, all right? The issues that matter to us, the issues that, inform us, our challenges, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I'm hoping that, we can achieve in the time that we're here together. Psalm 46 verse 1 says, God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. This metaphor emphasizes the idea of God as a source of strength, protection, and comfort for people who are facing adversity. My hope and prayer is that this round table will become such a place, all right, where we can find succor as pastors. Now, just in case you're here and you're not a pastor, it's okay, you are welcome, all right? You will benefit from our conversations, all right? Now, my idea is 60 minutes, not more than 60 minutes. Right now it's about 10:08. We may go a little bit over 60 minutes today because I've spent some time, just to get things revved up. And the idea is that, somebody says they can't hear me. Can anybody hear me? Hello, just say hi if you can hear me, please, on the chat. Just say
yes,
hi.
sir. Hi.
All right, very good. Thank you.
I can hear you, but it goes off and on. I don't know if it's from my end.
Okay, it goes off and on. Okay. Can everybody hear me now? Okay, somebody says the audio is okay here. Somebody says hi. All right. Okay, so I'm going to try to stay as close as I can to my speakers on my laptop. What that means is that next time we're going to meet, I'm going to have to plug in my ears with my earpiece. I don't have my earpiece handy right now, and I don't want to delay us, okay? So like I said, there will be a lot of, hitches this first time, so please bear with me. I'm sure that by the next time we're meeting, it will be more interesting, okay? So the idea is, I would, talk to my guests, ask them questions for the first 30 minutes thereabout. After that, I'll open the floor and people can ask their questions. And then after that, another 5 minutes for the guests to, make final comments. And then I'll take some announcements and we should be done, okay? So let's get into the meat of today's conversation. Today, we want to start off with a topic that's topical, like they say, the pastor and his mental health. I mean, pressure. There is pressure on us, particularly if you are in Nigeria. There's pressure on us, okay? And the thing about it is that when people are, when they are out of options, they come to us, yeah? Call the pastor. Sorry about that. My link has been very wonderful, but that notwithstanding, we're good to go. Yes, you couldn't hear again because I was bounced up, but I'm back now. So like I was saying, mental health refers to a person's overall psychological well-being, which includes the emotional, cognitive, and social functioning, okay? Now, when people are under pressure, they come to us as pastors. When we are under pressure, where do we go? And so what you then find is that many of us are, we are busting, really, literally busting. Yes, you couldn't hear me for a moment, but I'm sure you, can anybody hear me now? Just so I'm sure.
Yes, please, sir.
All right, okay, very good, very good. So today we are going to talk about mental health, all right? What is it? What causes it? Can a pastor have mental health challenges? All right. Is it spiritual? Okay, etc., etc. I have two distinguished guests with me tonight, and I'm going to introduce them. You know, just bear with me. Our first guest is. Let me get her resume. Give me a moment, please. I'm going to read her resume. That's the best way to do it. Mrs. Modupe G. Wigwe. Mrs. Modupe Wigwe, FMC, FPMC, CMC. Ma, you need to explain. One thing is clear, you are well credentialed, all right? She's the MD CEO of Peak Performance Coaching Academy and a certified cognitive behavioral therapist, a counselor, and NLP programming master practitioner, a coach with an emphasis on workplace productivity. She has over 30 years of experience working, consulting, and coaching on both private and public sectors. Her focus is women and girls, underachieving teams, dysfunctional teams in the workplace. It says Modupe is guided by the belief that self-awareness and mental capital, that's why she's here. Self-awareness and mental capital is the real wealth for individuals, families, organizations, etc. She's a member of the Board of Trustees of the Life Coach Association of Nigeria and a recipient of the Master Coach Award for her contributions to coaching in Nigeria. She's a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants, a certified management consultant, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Corporate Mentoring and Coaching Nigeria, and a member of the Governing Council of the same institute. She's the chairperson and a member of the Board of Trustees of the Association of NLP Practitioners in Nigeria. Wow. Thank you so much, Ma, and welcome. And then our second guest, now I need to behave myself not to call him his nickname. Dr. Adeoye Oyewole is a consultant psychiatrist, is my personal shrink, a life coach, a mental health advocate, an author, a theologian. So he's actually Reverend Doctor and an anthropologist. Doc, when you start speaking, please tell me what an anthropologist does. I have forgotten. I won't lie. I have to confess. He leads Life Care Consult, a humanitarian consultancy initiative that cares for and supports people with mental health issues, behavior, and human development challenges. He has a keen interest in behavioral sciences and lectures on same. He has consulted on human resource management, drug law enforcement, rehabilitation, and behavioral modification. Dr. Adeoye has designed and facilitated workshops for top executives on issues related to stress and effective management of self using practical coping methods and combating the menace of executive burnout and mismanagement of self. He has delivered various lectures, including Corruption as a Dysfunctional Societal Illness, the Mental Health Perspective of Nation Building, the Human Capital Utilization Option of Mental Health Wellbeing and Productivity, Building Awareness, Reducing Risk, Mental Illness, and Suicide. In addition to being a radio TV presenter, he's a regular columnist with the Punch newspaper, where he writes on diverse issues on mental health, social anthropology, and social development. He has written a number of books, including Eternal Life, Healing for Our Greed. He believes organizations must understand the role of psychology to ensure staff self-awareness for higher productivity, innovation, and service delivery. Dr. Adeoye is a fellow of CIPN, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Corporate Mentoring and Coaching Nigeria. He's also a member of the Nigerian Medical Association, Mental and Dental Consultant Association, Association of Psychiatrists, and American Psychiatric Association. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are in for a great time today. We have a robust panel. So without wasting time, I'd like to start with ladies first, Mrs. Wigwe, mental health and the pastor. What comes to mind, ma? Please unmute, Mrs. Wigwe. Can you hear me? All right, guys. My network is really acting up today. You have to bear with me. Maybe I'll go and buy Tesla, the newest. So, Mrs. Wigwe, I'd like you to please set the ball rolling for us. Hello, ma. Can you hear me? Please unmute, Mrs. Wigwe, if you can hear me. Yeah. Mrs. Wigwe, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Yes, I can hear you now. It went off.
Yes.
For a while.
Yes. My link has been pretty unstable. So like I was saying, ma, when you hear the word mental health and the pastor, what comes to mind?
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. And I'd really like to appreciate you, Pastor, for having this type of topic, and bringing us all to discuss this, because I think it is extremely important. So mental health and the pastor, what comes to mind? Let me start from the fact that mental health affects every single thing. Mental health affects how we relate with people. It affects how we relate with ourselves. It affects how we relate with our family. It affects how we relate in the workplace. It affects how we do our business, how we transact our business. It affects even the way we address health issues. In other words, physical health issues. So what I'm saying is mental health affects every single thing. If your mental health is good, then one is in a better position to address those issues in ways that ensure that the quality of our life is enhanced. If one's mental health is not good, then we will be addressing those issues in ways that will ensure that the quality of our life is impaired. Now, when we now say the pastor and mental health, pastors are also human beings. What is interesting is that a lot of times I find my clients will ask me that, I know that you're a Christian, but what we're doing here, what we are, in this session, is it a spiritual thing? Where can we situate it on, is it spiritual, right? And I always say, actually, it's hallowed ground. Because even the way you pray is affected by mental health, is impacted by mental health. As such, when we now come to people who actually stand on the pulpit, then mental health becomes very, very serious. Because we cannot see beyond our lens. So if the person on the podium has issues, right, that's exactly what the person is going to give out. If the person is stressed out, whatever message that they deliver, will be affected by the stress, whatever stress that they are going through at that time. Their understanding of it as well is affected by whatever stress that they're going through.
Thank you.
So,
So, Dr. Oyewole, what is mental health? When you hear mental health, the first thing that comes to your mind is madness. You know what I mean? Insanity. What is mental health, Dr. Adeoye?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mental health has 4 major criteria. Number 1, you are not mentally healthy over your potential.
Oh, can you hear me, Doc? Oh, the network is really, really acting up today. Doc, we're not hearing you. Can anybody hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Somebody is saying he can hear me. One Babatunde Omojola is hearing me.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
go ahead, Doc.
I
can hear you.
I can
go
hear
ahead.
you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm defining mental health on 4 major criteria. And I said, number 1, you are not mentally healthy until you have discovered your potential and you are unleashing it. Number two, when there is Naira scarcity, fuel scarcity, you don't go back home and start fighting your wife and your children for no reason. So in other words, you can effectively cope with stress.
Okay.
Number three, it also means that you have capacity to be productive. It's not so much about how much money you are earning, but of course, you must be earning something if what you are producing is of value to society. So you must be productive. And finally, you must be contributing something to society. You may not be a Dangote, you may not be a philanthropist who is building something big, but there must be something in your corner that you are doing. So this is WHO definition of mental well-being.
Okay. Okay.
So it means mental health. It means mental health is not just a clinical product. It's not something that doctors alone can certify. Oh, that just go to psychiatrists, they say that person is mentally well. So it has socio-economic definitions, socio-cultural definitions, and of course, this is where the pastor comes in. There's also spiritual definitions of mental well-being.
And what is that? What is the spiritual definition of mental well-being? I'd like to know that.
Yeah, that you are not spiritual because you speak in tongues for 24 hours, and it is very good. The Bible enjoins us to build up our most holy faith by speaking in tongues. Prayer is important. We read the Bible, but all of that is expected to reflect through our mind. As a matter of fact, when I was at the interview at the seminary, they said, "What am I doing here?" I said, "We're in the same business." The pastors are taking care of the mind from the spirit. The psychologists, the psychiatrists are also taking care of the mind using techniques, professional techniques. So the summary of what I'm saying is that no matter how spiritual you are, we are waiting for your mind to reflect it. So I don't know whether you're getting me, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. While we're at it, now, what are some of those unique challenges that pastors face that can impact their mental health?
Yes, one of them is the fact that the doctors, I have my call duties. When I'm not on call, nobody calls me. I have never operated on anybody in my life before. Because as soon as I finished in the medical school, I started practicing, I started training to be a psychiatrist. So nobody calls me to come and operate somebody. The pastor is on call 24 hours.
Wow.
And he is called to perform excellently well in all areas of life where he does not even have any training. If a member of your church is in police station and arrested, they call you. If one of the members of your church is beating his wife, they will call you. If somebody has been caught in the neighborhood, I mean, pastors are listening to me. They have an understanding of what I'm saying. Somebody is indebted and he has refused to pay, they call the pastor. And the pastor must show up. As a matter of fact, in some denominations, members find it very difficult to understand why a pastor will switch off his phone. Or if they call you, they said they called the pastor several times. He didn't even pick his call. Unfortunately, the pastor is a human being. He has a wife. He quarrels with his wife at times, or his wife quarrels with him at times. He has children. He has his own life struggles. He's from a family where they also expect him to be a son. a father, a husband, and all that. So an average pastor is a candidate for executive burnout because of what I've described. People used to think doctors, they say, doctor, thank God, you are working hard. Nobody calls me except I'm on call. A pastor does not have control over his time, over his life. So, I mean, anything mental health is a ready candidate for that.
Mrs. Wigwe, what are some of those signs that will show that maybe a pastor is beginning to, have issues? Stress may be getting to him. I mean, like Dr. Oyewole said, your ability to withstand stress is a sign of how, your mental health status. So what are some of those signs that are, telltale signs that maybe things are going wrong?
Yeah, well, you can have issues like someone who is not sleeping well, or someone who is irritable, someone who probably is actually fighting with everybody. Things are not going well at home. Things are not going well with the family members, fighting with everybody, right? Sometimes the person can suddenly be withdrawn, even though, yes, they're pastors, they come, they talk on the podium and everything, but, something has changed about how they're relating with everybody, yeah? So they're a bit withdrawn, yeah? So all of those things, can begin to happen, yeah? Now, sometimes, though, you don't even see those things when they relate with people in the church. But when they're back home, then it's as if that's a place where they can just
be themselves.
And all of that just comes out. Because I do have situations, right, where a young adult in such a home will tell me, I can't discuss that with my father. My father is just to correct. My father's role is just to correct, right? So there isn't too much in by way of that loving father and daughter or father and son kind of relationship, yeah. And sometimes the father is even too busy for those back at home, even though people in the church are getting enough of that person, yeah. Now, eventually, when the home front becomes a problem, it will eventually affect what is happening on the pulpit as well. Yeah. So those are
some of the things. Dr. Oyewole, can you weigh in on this?
Yeah. A pastor who is having psychological challenges may be converting sleeplessness to night vigils. As a pastor that is always talking of night vigil. He may be he may not be sleeping well. Some of them may find it difficult to concentrate. When it comes to reading the Bible, they become very restless. Some, like Mrs. Wigwe said, become unduly irritable in terms of being able to bear with others. People who work with such pastors begin to see that this man, this our Oga, this is our anointed man of God, is becoming short-tempered.
Now, just a moment, though. What if somebody says that and so somebody will say, "Oh, it's the fruit of the Spirit that is not fully formed in him." I don't know if you are getting it.
I get it.
How do we differentiate the?
That's why I said. That's why I said, Pastor Noruwa, that the measure of spirituality is in the mind. Now the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, self-control. Now, then he has no business trying to be a pastor, because one of the things that actually impact negatively on mental health is what you're calling self-control, coping mechanisms, the inability. Don't forget the 4 criteria of mental health. Now, we are not going to have somebody who is 100% formed to pastor, but I think we need to become aware rather than spiritualizing it or explaining it away. You know, we have ways of explaining some of our incompetencies or our weaknesses away on the altar of spirituality or religiosity, rather.
How do we get this balance? You know, it's a challenge. And when Dr. Oyewole finishes, please weigh in on this also. You know, it's like this. Is there a clear demarcation between spiritual and what you are describing here? You know what I mean? So I'm wondering to myself, am I carnal? You know, why can't I trust God? You know, so where's the where's the
I think in Africa we have a problem of definition of spirituality.
Okay.
We define spirituality as religiosity. So the pastor is this guy who comes regularly for meetings, has one big Bible. When there is prayer meeting, his voice is very loud and can speak in tongues longer than the other person. And like I said at the introduction, this thing must produce the fruit of the Spirit, which is mental well-being. All the fruit of the Spirit are the indices of mental well-being. All the works of the flesh are the manifestations of mental illness. So we have a poor definition of spirituality. If I notice my pastor brother is becoming unduly irritable, it's becoming difficult to be pacified, he's becoming too selfish. You know, I'm using Bible language now, but they also have their correlations in psychology. I mean, when you look at Abraham Maslow's theory of self-actualization, that's a spiritual man, isn't it? When a man is too preoccupied by title, maybe you're a provincial pastor, somebody made a mistake, says you're an area pastor, and you flared up.
Don't try me, Dr. Oyewole.
Sorry. Or somebody, I mean, things that if you are spiritual, you should overlook. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or even when you want to correct, or when you come around, we see all of you in the place, your ego, self. And when you are correcting, I mean, there's a place for correction, but we're seeing a man who is intolerant. These are mental health issues.
Okay, so let me ask Mr. Wigwe to weigh in on this. Where do we draw the line between being spiritual and these things we're talking about? Because, you know, in my head, I'm like, our training is that you grow in the Lord. You know what I mean? And then you are able to. So what's your take on this?
Okay, my take might actually be a bit radical. You know, I believe that holiness is also wholeness. You have to be whole. Yeah. Now, when we talk about wholeness, you can't be three people, you can't be four people, one person in the workplace, another person at home, another person on the podium, another person when you're outside, you know, with friends, right? That's several different people. That's a conflict that we were not engineered. That's not how we were built. We weren't built to have that kind of conflict, to be in several different compartments in that way. Yeah. So I think that it's about being whole. If what you truly believe is what you believe, it becomes the way of life. It becomes who you are. It can't only show up when you are in a certain place and then not show up when you're somewhere else. Right? That conflict in itself is that kind of self-deceit affects us, you know, and it contributes to having negative mental health.
So how can a pastor, or how can pastors create a culture of openness? You know, first of all, you know, here we are now talking about mental health and the pastor, but you know, the very thought of mental health is like a taboo, particularly in our church setting. You know what I mean? I mean, when I think mental health, I think of the madman of Gadarene. You know, it's not correct, but that's what my mind goes to. And, you know, madman of Gadarene met with Jesus. He was delivered. He became a new man. So therefore, when I hear mental health, my mind says to me, deliverance, etc., etc. So, how can we even open up so that as pastors, we can talk about it?
Yeah. I think that we start first by having a clearer understanding of mental health, which is one of the things that this roundtable is going to provide. When you were reading my profile and we talked about mental capital, right? Mental health is what gives you mental capital. Positive mental health gives us mental capital. Now, why am I referring to it as mental capital? Because when we talk about communication skills, that's a resource. Because the person who doesn't have good communication skills is going to have problems, whether it's in the home, on the pulpit, business, everywhere, the person is going to have problems, in which case, this is not it's no longer a useful resource. And if anything at all, it is affecting the quality of one's life. Yeah. Now, when we talk about being a self-awareness as well, being self-aware is so key, so critical. Now, can you imagine somebody who is not self-aware, the sort of mistakes the person is going to make, the lost opportunities, right? Now, what I'm saying by referring to this as mental capital is let's quantify this thing as if it was money. Money you have to live your business, in this case, the business of life. Yeah. So you've got all of these resources. How well are you doing with them? Somebody who doesn't have a good relationship, probably with the spouse at home. However, they're doing very well on the pulpit. If we asked you to put a sum to that, would you say that this is in this area of life you are profiting, you are making a profit, or not making a profit? Do you understand? So if we look at all our resources, as pastors, right? Whether it's in self-control, it's in resilience, it's in communication skill, the ability to communicate with other people, or even in self-awareness, all of these different areas. If we can just ask ourselves, where would I like to be with this? It's not even about, I had this loud voice from heaven that just spoke to me and told me, no, I have to. It's what do you expect from your quality of life? What do you want? Okay. What are the sort of things that would help enhance your quality of life? Definitely your relationship with people is going to help enhance it, right? If it is not going well, looking at it is not a sin and it's not a crime. Asking yourself, why isn't it going well? Why isn't this going well? Sometimes pastors, even with as much as they read the Bible and everything, have negative self-talk. In spite of the fact that they've been reading the Bible for so long. Now, because we have a culture where we usually judge people a lot, and because we judge people a lot, it makes it difficult for people to speak up. So part of our even addressing this issue is to have an understanding whereby we don't judge people anyhow. We at least allow room for people to make their mistakes so that they can grow. Understanding that if God can forgive, we can also forgive as well. But in most cases, right, we are very harsh. We judge very harshly, and that makes it difficult for people to come out. Yeah?
Dr. Oyewole, what resources, where do I go? So here I am, I'm here on this program. I kind of have a feeling that maybe I am actually stressed up, all right? So where do I begin to seek for help? Where do I go? What do I do next? Dr. Oyewole, are you there?
Yeah. Do pastors, are we actually in an environment that understands the fact that the pastor is human? To be a successful pastor in this part of the world, you have to be omnipotent. You have to be extremely spirit without a body. That's the paradigm. And the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4 talks about the fact that we have this treasure
in
an earthen vessel, so that the excellency of the power does not seem to come from us, but from God. Paul said, He was cast down. Paul the apostle.
So
Paul
just a moment, Doc. So what I hear you say is that admitting your humanity or your vulnerability is a plus as a pastor, yeah?
Absolutely, because it helps God to come in. If there's a problem the black man has, is that we externalize our weaknesses so we don't face it. We overuse defense mechanisms and culture mental health problems. We need to be sincere with ourselves. The Bible says in the book of Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12 that the word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword. What it does is that it helps you to differentiate what is of your spirit and what is of your flesh, and judges your thoughts and intentions. All our religiosity at times is not from the spirit, it's from the soul. It's carnality. But another pastor cannot tell you that. You need to be sincere and open and have a dialogical relationship with God through the Holy Spirit, extraying you. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you may just drop dead, because this mental health we're talking about also results into physical problem. A lot of people, when you violate your mental health, you shut down your cardiovascular system. A lot of people are carrying a lot of high blood pressure. They are not aware, and they just drop dead from the pulpit. So that's I call it self-audit.
Okay.
Sincere self-audit.
So that's
Number two, feedback from your significant others, your wife, your children, your friends. Pastors need to have somebody. As a pastor, you need to have somebody who can tell you the truth. There are some people you can't tell them the truth. They are too anointed for anybody to speak to their lives. And this person must be sincere. And oftentimes, our wives, for us male pastors, they tell us, you are running. I have a very respected brother, very successful minister in the US. He said, the wife said, this month that every phone you are ringing to, you are going to jump it, that you will die one day. He said 3 weeks after, he came down with a stroke. Big man. And he said he had a repeat stroke. It was just by the grace of God that he didn't die. So it's not just mental alone, even physical health. Because when you shut down your mind, it affects your body. So significant others speaking to our lives, our children, our wives. Some of us don't even allow our wives to speak, our spouses, our children to speak to our wives. We're always speaking to people, speaking, and speaking. Then we need help, professional help. Doctors or people like Mrs. Wigwe there, she's a certified psychologist. Some of us may just find out that our mind is not functioning well like it used to do.
So how does a pastor go to somebody for help when he's supposed to be the giver of help?
That's the erroneous definition of who a pastor is. The other time somebody was, if you look at the pastoral epistles, Paul was busy advising Timothy on several things to do about his health. He was prescribing some drug to him the other time. If it's today, I should have arrested Paul because he wasn't a doctor. I don't think whether he has a medical certificate, but he was prescribing drug for his a bishop, a whole bishop. That is your abdominal pain that is always disturbing you. It means he must have discussed it with him. This being all of treasure without the earthen vessel is not only devilish, it's destructive. It's not even spirituality. It is some strange spiritism. Okay. And it is pride, ego.
So let me, thanks, Doc. Let me ask, there's a question on my mind. To some extent, if you look at the Orthodox churches, you have the clergy and the laity, all right? So there is that demarcation. And some people say that it helps the laity to believe that the clergy are somewhat, closer to God, in quotes. Rightly or wrongly, another conversation, yeah? Now, how can a pastor navigate the tension between their own struggles of mental health with the expectation? It's like the people expect that you have the answer. Meanwhile, yourself, you are looking at the question just like they are looking at it. All right? So how do you balance that equation such that you can be vulnerable and at the same time you can be a provider of succor? Mrs. Wigwe.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Such a good question. You know, all of us are affected by the environment we're in. And if you look around our culture, right, we tend to mystify people. Your elder, right, is mysterious. It's kind of mysterious, you know, the way we respect them, the way, do you understand? And then when you look at our institutions in Nigeria as well, the culture that has seeped into that, and again, we turn people into demigods. We don't have institutions because it's the people themselves who are institutions. This too has seeped into the church. And we have pastors feeling that they have to be the institution. You know, they can't be human. It'll be a sign of weakness to even be human. Now, at the end of the day, right, we do have pastors who get cancer. We have pastors who get stroke. We have pastors who get all the things that affect the people that they minister to, and it affects them as well. That should be a wake-up call. That should be a wake-up call, that we are human. Because you see, until the time we decide that we actually need to look at this thing head on, you know, take the veil off as a, and confront it for what it is. Because society is not going to change. We are the ones who will start to change it. People are not going to suddenly wake up tomorrow and decide that, oh, pastor is also a human being. The pastor needs to start letting people know that I'm a human being. And some of these things affect me as well. Pray for me. Because even when they don't say it, right, we now find major scandals sometimes, you know, when they finally fall. Maybe if they had asked for help earlier, it could have been, you know, something could have been done.
Thank you. Okay, so let's take questions now. I need to apologize. This is 100-person Zoom link, and we're already over 100.
Okay.
And folks are screaming at me. I wasn't expecting this much people. Maybe I underestimated the importance of the topic. So please bear with me. Like I said, this is the first time. By next month, by God's grace, I would have found a way around this, okay? Even though it's been live streamed, okay? So please, if you have friends who are not able to join, can you just send them a message? YouTube at a word in season _ That's my YouTube page. You will find it live streaming. In fact, there's another computer right beside me and I'm watching us live, okay? So it's been live streamed. So if you have a question, this is the time to ask your question, all right? I know a few questions had come before. Somebody says, can I, a pastor, request for leave to have a retreat to deal with this mental health? Very often that will be considered a weakness. Dr. Oyewole, do you want to have just, you know, any comment on that?
I think from what we have been saying, that is in order. We have said that we should not be omnipotent. You have the treasure in the vulnerability of the earthen vessel. So it's not out of place. That's pride. I mean, you are human. And you know what we fail to realize is that true ministry is a product of humanity that has been helped by God. If you must have an impactful ministry, your struggles as human, like every other, just like God came and became human to bring us up. If you must have an impactful ministry, it's a product of your own struggle that God has helped you about. So why try to play God? So it's another place. Let anybody say you are weak. You know that you are strong.
You know, interestingly, there was a period in my life when for 6 months, and I'm not advocating this, you got to be clear what you're doing. I just quit going to church. And I just stayed at home for 6 months. And I was just saying to the Lord, it doesn't make sense. I was on autopilot. I wasn't making progress. And you know, the funny thing, my ministry was revived after that 6 months, stepping out. I mean, I came back, and it's like if you were to look at my life and ministry, that period became the second half of my work with God started off, all right? Because I've never been good at playing church. So when I wasn't getting anything anymore, I just suspended, I left everything. And I said, you know what? Take the position, take this, take that, take that. I didn't get into this business for position. I got into this business just to love the Lord and serve him. So I'm not doing that very well. So shut down. All right. 6 months into my retreat, if you like, I had a voice. And the Lord said, go to this particular church. And that's how everything about me was relaunched. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, Doc. Guys, do we have questions? This is the time to ask your questions. Please just type it into the chat so that, I'm trying to see if there are any questions that came earlier. I still have a few questions, but I thought maybe the audience would have questions. Otherwise, I still have a few questions of my own.
Pastor.
Yes, go ahead, Ma.
Yeah, let me just mention, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you talked about your 6-month break,
mm-hmm.
right? That takes a certain level of self-awareness. Yeah, to do that. A lot of people, one, will not be aware. Secondly, even when they get some idea that this is what is going on with them, they don't even have the courage to take that step. And that's the reason why I said this takes a serious level of self-awareness. You knew that this isn't prospering me. I'm not deriving value from this. Yeah. Like you said, I'm not used to playing church. Because there's something that you have already determined that you're supposed to get out of it, which you could immediately see that you were no longer getting from it, right? And it made you take that step, and you definitely decided this is what you need, and you stayed with it.
Actually, when I look back now, I think it was depression or something close to it. I think so. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't me. And I just figured, you know what, just pull out all the plugs. Just pull out all the plugs, all right? Thank you very much, Salami. Thank you so much. What practical steps, very quickly again, I know we've dealt on this before, but very quickly, Mrs. Wigwe, to prevent burnout, top tips that a pastor can just to prevent burnout. What would you suggest?
I spoke about self-awareness. Right? How much do you really know about yourself? When you are even a bit off, can you sense it? Do you know? No matter how many people are around you, no matter what what's happening around you, can you tell when you're a bit off? It's very important for us to become more self-aware. I know that we talk about quiet time. We talk about going into the silence, being silent and being still. Right? But you see, if we really do that, if we truly do it properly, it makes us more self-aware because it awakens something in us and causes us to look in certain places, within our life or, around us and what is going on. So that self-awareness is something that we definitely need to practice. Now, secondly is, right, for a lot of us, just being aware of our self-talk. What's that conversation that goes on in your mind continuously every day? It's interesting that when people come for help and I say, be aware of your thoughts or keep a thought log, people will tell me, I don't even think too many thoughts. Or I prayed, I was just thinking about God's will. I don't think too many thoughts. Science tells us that we think about 7,000 thoughts, 70,000 thoughts, right, in a day. And I tell them that let us even assume that the scientists are lying, they didn't get it right. So let's cut it down drastically to 20,000. Maybe 20,000 is even too much. Let's cut it down to 10,000. Maybe 10,000 is too much. Cut it down to 5. Cut it down to 1,000. Now give me 10 thoughts that you thought during the day, and people struggle to come up with those 10 thoughts. What does that tell us? That you're on autopilot. So your thoughts will take you where they will take you during the day. You understand? It doesn't matter the prayer that you said in the morning. But during the day, what thoughts are you thinking? Where does it take you to? Does it deny the prayers that you prayed in the morning, right? So if you are aware of your internal dialogue, what I'm thinking, it really helps to combat stress, because you can tell immediately that I'm going off that, oh, wow, this is a pattern that exists in my thinking, and then you can begin to address it.
Thank you
now,
so much.
The third one.
Go on. Yes, go on.
The third one that I would also is that you have somebody that you talk to, that you can be honest with, that you can really be yourself with. Like Dr. Oyewole is my shrink. Like you said, is your shrink. He's my shrink. Yes, I'm a coach, but I do not for any second think I know it all. So sometimes I am in a mood, I'll talk to him about it. Even if I have a client I'm seeing at that time, I double check with him. What do you think? This is my position on this. What do you think? And we talk about it. Everybody must have that kind of relationship. It's very, very important.
Okay. Somebody says, can you please share Dr. Oyewole, some thoughts about the impact of sleeplessness on mental health?
By the time your sleep is disrupted, except you choose to disrupt it, there's something that is going on with your mental health. The commonest signal that you're losing psychological balance is that your sleep pattern is disturbed. So all the mental illnesses, depression, mania, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, all have poor sleep. So it's more like something is happening deep inside of you, and it's saying, please, you need to gain the rhythm back. It could be a signal for you to look at a particular issue that is disturbing you. I could be worried about something. I could be bothered by that something, but it's a signal. So it's not something you give your own interpretation and convert it to night vigil. You ask yourself, why is my sleep disturbed? Do you understand? And like Mrs. Wigwe talked about self-talk, being aware of our thoughts, you can exercise your spirit to be able to pick what is actually feeding this sleeplessness. And when you fail, you may need a professional help.
Thank you so much, Doc. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin to wind down, so like I said at the beginning, this is the Pastor's Roundtable. It is my desire that this place becomes a place of refuge where we can find succor and comfort as pastors. Here, we're not trying to impress anybody, all right? Here, we recognize that we are vulnerable. We are human beings, gifted by God, called by God to do what we're doing. This is our first outing. And so I'm sorry for all the glitches. I will try and make sure that we sort them out before we meet again next month. Our next meeting will be on the 15th of March, Wednesday, the third Wednesday, 15th of March, 8 p.m. And what are we talking about on that day? Once upon a time, making babies was straightforward. A man and a woman sleep together, the woman gets pregnant, and bingo, baby happens. But now, we have IVF, we have surrogacy, we have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, young lady comes to pastor, she's in her late 30s, pastor, no man is coming, and I can't wait anymore. I need something to do with my life. I'm going to go and buy a sperm. What does the pastor say? All right, how do you answer that question? Next month, by the grace of God, I'm going to be having a lawyer, a senior lawyer, versed in scriptures, a doctor, and a woman who has had a baby not via the natural way, to talk about this conversation, So if a member comes to you today and says, Pastor, I'm pregnant, I didn't fornicate, I didn't commit adultery, so what do you do with that person? Send her out of the church, pray for her, dedicate the baby. Those are issues that we must begin to deal with in these times that we live in, all right? So by God's grace, next month, I'm still trying to coin it. I said to my wife, making babies, ethical dilemmas that pastors face. And my wife said she doesn't like making babies. So I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but I'm working on a topic for it. All right. Yeah, I'm working on a topic for it. Please, my YouTube channel @awordinseason_. I'd like you to go there, all right, because I'm going to post this video. I'm going to edit it some. You know, I'm going to edit it some, and then I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel at @awordinseason_. And on Sunday, I shared with some of our senior pastors in our province how I am coping with the madness that is Nigeria. All right, I shared 10 points. I called it tips to thrive in the midst of this madness that we call Nigeria. All right, somebody is saying, can we have another session on this topic? Or, oh yes, where can people go for further help? Dr. Oyewole and Mrs. Wigwe, please type in the chat your contact details. Both of them come highly recommended, all right, for, you know, coaching, counseling, etc. So if you both do not mind, please type your, you know, your contact details on the chat so that people can take you up. Somebody said, thanks a lot for this forum. I just took a leave from my church in January because of excessive pressure after 7 years without a break. Is it too early to start missing the pulpit? Depends on you, Paul. Very educated. Thank you very much. Pastor, can we have another session on this topic where people can go for further help? They're going to give you information now. Somebody says, Pastor, most times the person with mental health issues is the last person to recognize or accept it, but close family members and friends will know. I suggest the ministry must empower spouses to be free to discuss with their provincial pastor if he or she is unduly worried or concerned or suspects the partner has issues that should be right early and confidential. Atmosphere was created to make. Yes, that's correct. A lot will depend on who your provincial pastor is. I agree with you. Too much pressure and activities, particularly how to solve challenges of the congregation, is a critical issue on mental health. Well, can I quickly say something to that? I tell the people I am not the solution provider. I make no pretense about it. Whatever I do it in God's name. So, for example, if you are sick, my business is to pray for you. It is God that heals, okay? So I don't take it upon myself to work out your healing. So I'm not under any pressure, okay? And interestingly, to the glory of God, I've seen incredible things happen after, you know, what somebody might consider a rather short prayer. So don't take it, you are not God. It is not you that heals. You're not the one that saves. You're not the one that delivers. Yours is to deliver. You are like an errand boy. God says, go and tell them my word will heal you. Say so and leave the rest for him. All right. Thank you all so very much. It's been wonderful. I have enjoyed myself tremendously. Going by the number of people that were part of this, we were 100 all through, and there are people online watching. I am so impressed, all right? It says, how do we handle guarantor issues, sir? What do you mean by guarantor? Well, time is fast spent now. Dr. Oyewole, thank you so much. Mrs. Wigwe, thank you so much. You guys have become the pioneers, the very first guests on the Pastors Round Table. All the pastors, friends, family that joined, thank you so much. I have enjoyed this time, and I look forward to us meeting again next month. Please keep it a date, 3rd Wednesday, 8 p.m. Lagos time, Pastors Round Table. All right, like I said, next month, we're going to be talking about the new ways of making babies and the ethical dilemmas that pastors must now have to attend to. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and God bless you. Dr. Oyewole, thank you very much. You see, I survived. I didn't call you by your nickname. I survived it.
That's why I was shocked when Mrs. Wigwe called me by that name. I said, Pastor Noruwa must have given you that name.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
And have a wonderful night. Thank you.